Welcome to the first episode of the Empowered Half Hour for 2024. And for this episode, I will be bringing you a solo episode. And the reason for doing that is because I have so much going on in my world, and I don't get an opportunity to cut solo episodes very often because I have the most incredible guests all the time. But the first episode, I feel, is always a good time for a solo. So here we go. The story I want to share with you today brings me back to the summer of '69. I had my first real six string. I bought it at the five and dime. No, I'm only kidding. It was the summer '86. But it goes like this. I walk in to this establishment and all I see is a lowly lit room with multicolored lights coming in and shining through the smoke and the fog that is in this place. And at first, I can't really understand what's going on, but then I hear and see exactly what's happening. As I get moved to the back of the room, I have a full preview of this band and this man playing Comfortably Numb on the stage. And this guy, he is radiating something magical. Every single time he takes a strum on his guitar, his eyes are closed and he's leaning into what just feels like passion and an extension of the universe through him. I can't even explain it, but it was mesmerizing. And as he leans in more to the solo within a Comfortably Numb, so if you know Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb, then you know what solo I'm talking about. But this guy from stage closes his eyes, tilts his head back, and begins to rip the most epic guitar solo. I am in complete awe, and so is the rest of the audience. Everyone is either standing up to do their own epic air guitar solo along with this gentleman, or they're closing their eyes just to go deeper into the experience because it was captivating. It really brought you in and felt magical. And as the guitar solo came to an end, the same guy that was playing the guitar solo began to sing the lyrics of Comfortably Numb. And so he wasn't even just the guitar player, he was also the lead singer, lead guitar player, lead singer. This moment in time was so cool to me. I was mesmerized. And as the song came to a close and the band did their final notes, the entire bar, that's where I was at, the entire bar stood up in a standing ovation. I had goosebumps from head to toe because something magical transcended. There was like this extension of the universe through this lead guitar player as he flawlessly and effortlessly executed the song. And my mom grabs my hand. She looks over at me with this big smile on her face. And I look back at her because my 7-year-old self just saw my dad bring an entire audience into a standing ovation. I could still feel that moment now and how much joy and passion and I use this word again, magic, just oozed from this experience and radiated from my dad out into the crowd. I was mesmerized. And the thing is, I grew up in a household where my parents were full-time musicians when I was born. Like music was a part of our everyday life. But this, in the summer of '86, I was 7 years old, was the first time I saw my dad play live with an audience. It is the first time I can recall seeing someone's radiance shine through them and out to other people. And what I can say is radiance. This is the conversation that I want to talk about today. But radiance is the part of us that is us. It contains our strengths, our gifts, our unique talents. And when we embrace our radiance and our uniqueness and share it with other people, it moves people. It elicits joy and freedom and self-expression in others because we're brave enough to share our own radiance. And when we are in what I am calling radiance, we are more fulfilled, we make more impact, and it's just such a wonderful thing. And so I invite you to return to your radiance. Everybody has it. And what I'd like you to do, as long as you're not driving, is I'd like you to stick your arm out in front of you all the way forward, straight out, so that your tip of your fingers, if you're watching this video, you'll be able to see it, but your tip of your fingers are straight out, like towards in front of your nose, out into the world, straight in front of you. All right, so that is, everyone has a radiant field. And this, from your fingertips back to your shoulders, is your radiant field. And I like to think of it like this. Within our radiant field is our gifts, our talents, our strengths floating around like gemstones, waiting for us to claim them. And it's just such a beautiful picture to kind of allow yourself to see, because you have gifts and talents and strengths that are longing to be shared. And the reason this topic is so important to me right now and why I feel so passionate about it is because I've had time to mature on my own journey. So if you've been with me, if you've been listening since the very beginning, back when I had the High Achievers Club, you'll know that I shared some of my earlier stories, like root stories, like who my parents were, my grandma, stuff like that, and some of my childhood experiences. And that was maybe 2 years ago. And what I want to say before I get into that story is you are never stuck. You are never limited by the time and space that you were in. We have the option to change, to choose differently, and to evolve. Evolution is part of the human experience. So if you're staying stagnant, know that evolution can happen and that your viewpoints can change. And I say that because back 2 years ago, when I was talking about my parents, and when I was maybe even 3 years ago, when I was doing tours for podcast tours and interviews for Harness Your Inner CEO, I had shared that I thought that my parents had addictions to maybe alcohol. I had shared that despite losing both of them, so if you don't know, now you know, I've lost both my parents. They've passed and at different times, but I had considered their passing due to reckless neglect. Like they didn't take good enough care of themselves and they allowed themselves to like wither away, basically. I mean, they both passed away from complications with prescription pills, and I just couldn't see how they couldn't get it together. I mean, I know addiction is hard and things like that, but that's really where my mindset was. I thought that they were stuck in addiction and that they really felt like they were powerless. But since then, I have changed my perspective. And so I kind of want to apologize to my parents in a way, because now I know something that I didn't know then. And that is that our radiance is our essence. This uniqueness that I'm talking about is our way of self-expression when we are tapped into exactly who we are and who we were born to be. My dad was meant to be a lead guitar player. He could move people in ways that I've only seen a handful of times. Like it was magical. And I think it was my dad gifted, yes, but what my dad did was he allowed this gift to move through him. He didn't have to force it to happen. I mean, sure, maybe he had to learn how to play the guitar and then he had to practice, but he allowed this beautiful gift of his to flow through him. And in doing so, it touched other people in a positive way. And all of our gifts are like that. And so as my viewpoint started to mature, I thought to myself, wow, what happens to somebody when they know what this feeling is? When they are connected to the radiance, they feel on top of the world, they feel unstoppable, they feel in their potential, they're in what we strive for as a human being is self-actualization, like self-actualizing who we really are. I'm like, oh my God, my parents did that. And they did it at a young age. And what I think really happened is that my parents didn't pass away from reckless neglect. they passed away because they became disconnected from their radiance. They became disconnected from the truth of who they knew they were because they had already touched it. They knew it. And as I look back, I'm like, wow, by the time they were in their mid 40s, they did not play as many gigs as they used to. They were busy doing what we all do, working full time, raising kids, concerned about family members, paying bills, all of it. All of their essence, energy, and time was wrapped up into surviving. And even though we were doing well, and my dad had a great job, and we had a house and a boat, and things were really starting to quote unquote go up for us, slowly over time, if I look back, I see their light start to dim. And unfortunately, my mom's light dimmed really early in her lifespan. She died at 46. And my dad, he got riddled with disease by the time he was 50, and he passed away at 62. So I'm really passionate about this topic, radiance, and connecting back to it because I believe that if we are connected to the truth of who we are, into that essence, that's the part of us that's unlimited and limitless, we not only get to live our very best lives, we get to feel joy and contentment and fulfillment, and we get to make an impact. And we also, through being who we truly are, through being in our fullest potential and letting that light shine from the inside out, we inspire other people to do the same. And when we're living in our best health and we're allowing our well-being to be a priority, we do radiate all those things. And I just think that more people need to know that you were born with your radiance intact. You have these gifts, talents, and strengths that are uniquely yours, and that when you tap into them, not only do you get to manifest your own dreams or see your own desires come to reality, you change the world. You show people it's possible. And so this episode is an invitation for you to make a return to radiance. I have spent the last probably 8 months writing the book, A Return to Radiance. And that's why I'm so like, I need to share this with you guys. Not all of you are in my book world, but I have to share this concept with you because it is so important. We, at a very young age, we know exactly what lights us up from the inside. Whether you danced or you sang or you acted. I talk about the arts a lot because generally our souls like to create. And some people create through businesses, some people create through engineering, some people create through the standard arts, like I was saying, singing, dancing, painting. Maybe it's through moving your body with fitness, whether you're a runner or you do yoga. I mean, there's so many different ways we can express ourselves, but I can guarantee you one thing. There is a few ways that are unique to you that when you are in your zone, whether you want to call it a zone of genius or a zone of inspiration, you feel like $1,000,000. You're smiling from the inside out. Your eyes are twinkling. And if somebody was in your presence, you would be lighting them up too. And I just want you to know, if you feel disconnected from that, you're not alone. My guess from all the research that I've done into burnout and disconnection is that I would say over 80% of people feel disconnected from the truth of who they are. And probably, if I'm being super transparent with my survey results, it's over that. But I want to give some leeway to the good. Like, there are people who are in this zone, who are sharing it, and who are inspiring others. But I think the bigger thing that I'm talking about here is that it's in you. I'm not talking about other people who have found it. I want you to find it. And in putting a framework together to help you return to your radiance, I created this method. I call it the Power Method. I mean, my last name is Powers, so it seemed to make sense. But I really thought that this framework would help someone reconnect with the deeper part of themselves, that part that, again, I say is unlimited, where your soul is ignited, you're reconnected. And so I'd like to share that with you. The Power Method has 5 pillars. The first one is protect your potential. You can't get in your potential when you're in your unpotential. And I kind of say that with a giggle, but it's so true. We're taught from a societal perspective to be a good girl, be a good boy, complete your tasks, do your homework, do all these things. Well, I'm not saying that any of that is bad, but there's a conditioning that pulls us out of the truth of who we are. And then there's no real guidance to get back to it. And what we have to do to grow up and become quote unquote something, we often lose that connection to who we truly are. So the very first thing that we need to focus on is protecting our potential. So for you, that's protecting your potential, and that can be a whole conversation in itself, each one of these pillars, but I want to kind of give you some ideas of what's included in protect your potential. These are things like you got to learn to say yes to yourself. We're so used to saying yes to other people that we don't even realize we're saying no to ourselves. So for instance, you might say yes to your kids, yes to your boss, yes to your friends. There's just so many yeses going out that ultimately you've been saying no to yourself. You're exhausted, you feel weakened, you can't drink enough Red Bulls or get enough Starbucks coffees. Like you're just kind of just running on empty, but still running because you're conditioned to keep running. And that's not a state we want to be in. So you got to learn how to say yes to yourself, which really includes boundaries and learning to say no to other people. Or if you do have to say yes to something that you know is going to drain you, then you're intentionally allowing yourself to come back to something that fills you up so that your energy stays high. In protecting your potential, you also need to learn about some basic things like your trauma responses. Do you freeze? Do you fight? Do you fawn? I mean, there's all sorts of things that can go into this space, but this is really about like self-discovery and learning how you let your energy flow out to everyone else except for you. So what we do in Protect Your Potential is start putting in practices that allow your energy, your vitality to stay with you, because when you're in your vitality, that's when you have a little bit more connection to your radiance and what your uniquenesses are. All right, so now we have protect your potential. The next phase is own your opportunities. And this is a little bit of, I don't want to say it's challenging, but it is challenging because we have to do the work. Our lives don't change if we don't do the work. And this is the area where we rise from being a victim to victor, from feeling victim to feeling victorious. And that takes a lot of resetting. It takes a lot of rethinking. It takes a lot of settling past issues and a whole lot of awareness. And so this is probably the step that most people don't do. People get stuck in their unpotential and they get stuck in their issues. And I'm not saying that the issues that the events in your life that have either impacted your self-esteem or traumatized you aren't real or valid. But what I am saying is that you have the ability to rise above that. The human spirit is so resilient that if you even understood how resilient you were, you would shake off everything and just get back to being you. And this is when we're able to turn our setbacks into successes. We learn to leverage our adversities, because in every adversity that we've been through, we've learned a lesson. Even if it's been painful, there's something that has built our character or something that we've learned to avoid. And if you learn to leverage these things, you can really shift and then start owning your opportunities. So instead of allowing yourself to, again, like kind of using my parents' example, feel disconnected from themselves or feeling overwhelmed because the status of their life, it's the and. You can be experiencing, working, losing people, all the things that go on in an adult life and then also continue to shine. And that's a conscious choice. And so within A Return to Radiance in the book itself, I go into all of this in nitty gritty detail, but I'm just kind of letting you know, like the formula right now, the pillars. The W is waken your worthiness. And this is where I say where the soul's really reignited because we've done some heavy, protecting our potential, we're shifting our lenses and owning our opportunities as we go forward. And now we're awakening our worthiness. We're allowing ourselves to dream again. We're allowing, I call them super big, dreamy goals, but we start thinking about what they are, what lights us up, what are we passionate about? And not only all of that, but then claiming your inherent worth. You were born worthy of greatness. You were born worthy of health, wealth, happiness, well-being. These are things that we are innately, I'm using that word again, but these are things that are born in us. And then we just become disconnected from them. And when we become disconnected from our worthiness, that's when we get sick. So I use my parents' examples. I'm like, wow, they weren't recklessly neglecting themselves. They didn't know how to take care of themselves. Holy crap, is that like such a big moment in time? And that's like why I'm so passionate about helping people and kind of giving you this bird's eye view into things I've been working on, because if you can take some of these things away from this episode, they're really going to help you. So if you, again, claim your worthiness and own that you are just magnificent as hell, then we move into the fourth pillar, which I call elevate your energy. This is when you start to really become one with yourself. You're doing breath work, you're meditating, you're moving your body in ways that feels good. You are aligning your chakras, you're leveraging your gifts and talents in a way that gives you energy. And if we go back to the beginning of my story, when you are exuding your potential and your true essence, then you give that gift of energy and elevation back to other people. And that cycle just continues to fill you up, but you're serving others from the overflow of your cup being so full rather than from like the evaporated last drop in your cup. We don't want to do that anymore. So there's a lot of things that you can intentionally do to shift and elevate your energy and get you into a higher vibrational state where you are aligned. This is about alignment, where you now become aligned to who you truly are. And then the last pillar is once you start controlling your energy sources, then you get to rock your radiance. That's where you get to really take on this persona of who you are. Like for my dad, he would have never stopped being a lead guitarist if he stayed in his radiance. For myself, I am claiming my radiance, and I would say rocking my radiance, but my gifts and talents lie in the form of self-expression, communication. I like to write, I like to podcast, I like to speak. And the more that I do that, the more I feel whole. And the more I feel whole, the better my health is, the better my finances are, the more fulfilled I am. The more fulfilled I am, the better my relationships are. The better my relationships are, the more joy and peace and ease comes back into my life because I'm not fighting with the whole world anymore. So I think you can start to see that there is a formulaic way that you can go about becoming reconnected to the truth of who you are, and how I like to say it, return to your radiance. So guys, we're about ready to wrap up the first half-hour session within the Powered Half Hour podcast episodes of 2024. And I hope that it started you off with some inspiration, maybe some little nuggets of motivation, maybe some ahas happened. Whatever it is, know that you are completely entitled to living your best damn life in your strengths, your talents, and your gifts. You do not have to hide these things. These are actually the things that are going to make your life work in the most magical and magnificent ways. So with that, thank you, listeners. That's it for tea time this week. Thank you so much for all your listenership in 2023. We went over 15,000 downloads from April to the end of the year. We're rocking about 1,500 to 2,000 downloads a month. And these awesome statistics wouldn't even be possible without you. So if you have felt like this show has done something for you, please tell a friend, because maybe it'll help them too. And I hope you have a wonderful 2024. Let's make things happen. Till next time.